Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of Emerging Brands Podcast with Kelly Bennett. Today, I am with someone that my girlfriend thought it was very cool that I was interviewing. So she scored me some cool points at home and also is a founder of a delicious brand that has really exploded. So Jen Liao is the co-founder of president of MìLà. And she's on the podcast today to share the behind the scenes of the brand. So, Jen, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
You're
Excited for the discussion.
Me too. I just realized my microphone was sitting on the side, but that's okay. We're back in action. So, Jen, I would love to hear your background of your career, how you started this brand. I love your content on social. It just feels like you're bringing people on the ride with you. So, can you give us a little bit of your background and how you started the brand?
Yeah, so I guess career background wise, I was actually in health tech before this. So I studied biology. I was working at a health tech company. And then October 2018, we had actually opened a brick and mortar restaurant. So it was called Shotsujit. And it's still called Shotsujit, but that's how we started, was actually with this name as well. And in the beginning, it was really just intended to open this to eat our favorite street foods from China. And that was it. It was just kind of like a selfish project for us to be able to eat delicious food and go there whenever we wanted to. During COVID is when we had actually shut down for 3 weeks. And during those 3 weeks, we started to experiment with freezing soup dumplings, which is our hero product now. And I think just, since the focus of this is around brand, what's really interesting is for the restaurant, we kind of had just put together things that we thought were cool and edgy at the time and had cool colors. So we had red and green and navy blue. And then we had like these collages, but we had taken stock images of more of like the Mao era type things that you see, because we were doing street food and wanted that like vibe of street. And so it wasn't necessarily 100% intentional of how we arrived there, but it looked amazing. We worked with someone that I had figure skated with in middle school, and she was a fantastic, talented designer. And she's kind of responsible for sparking our look and feel at the time, which was like way cooler than anything I could have designed. But that's our jump off point of what we had started with.
Okay, I love how this tied into biotech, middle school figure skating. Taking a I mean, to start a concept of a restaurant is not for the faint of hearts, and the fact that you were like, "Yeah, let's just try it. Let's just do it." I mean, such an adventurous spirit right off the bat, of saying yes to doing such a project, to figuring out what your hero product is. I'm already hooked. Okay, so you opened up that concept, COVID hit, you realize you can freeze the soup dumplings, and is that how, MìLà started?
Yes, exactly. So we essentially had put the frozen soup dumplings in literally a Ziploc bag, in a brown paper bag, and we had Google form for ordering, and we had PayPal link for paying, and that was it. So we
Wow.
just tested this to see if it was something that people even wanted. And, just gradually we started to get more referrals and word of mouth further and further away from where our restaurant was. And so by November 2020, so about 5 months after we had started this, we were technically nationwide D2C. So
Wow.
yeah, and at the time we still were called Shotsujit, and I think as we expanded online, and also like 3 weeks into this, we started to test some online ads to see like, hey, is this something that people want to buy online? Food is not really typical to purchase online, especially frozen food, but who knows? And at the time, I think we were very lucky that paid advertising was very cheap on Meta, since all the advertisers had pulled out. People were searching for an experience. And so it was just kind of this lightning in a bottle moment for us in terms of product market fit. Timing was right. Things were cheap for us to kind of get going and experiment with. But I think like from Sheltaja restaurant days, I mentioned this middle school graphic designer that we worked with. The whole thing was centered around people that were in our lives that kind of mattered to us, making this happen. So had opened the restaurant with a third partner. His name is Norman, and I had known him from high school. This middle school figure skater person did our design, and my mom and her friends and my grandma had actually helped in the restaurant to fold dumplings when we didn't have enough staff in the very beginning because we didn't, like anticipate the demand. And so I think as we grew and then so November 2020, we had been nationwide DTC. And then I would say by the end of 2021, when we had kind of scaled operations a little bit and gone to our first factory, that's when we started to think about our name, and we were expanding beyond just soup dumplings. So we actually had tried skewers, we were launching noodles and working on that. So we wanted a name that embodied it a little bit broader than what we started with, which was just street food and purely Chinese food in a traditional sense. So this is where we started to like learn about, oh, where would we take this? How would we evolve this? What's meaningful to us? And it was a lot of personal introspection, honestly. And I would say from early days when we had all these friends and family who helped us, like that felt like it was the heart and the core of what we were doing, but also, we can extend it in so many different ways from what has already been done.
I love all the family and friends and generational connections behind your brand and your concept. So where was the restaurant located?
Bellevue, Washington.
Very cool. And the fact that it sounds like you really leverage your roots and network of close friends and family to help you build this is also a testament of you as a founder of connecting and leveraging who you know and how they could support, and the fact that people were there to all pitch in, what it sounds like, which is really amazing. So, when did it start going to scale? Like when did you start putting out the product then say on grocery or outside of D2C? I would love to hear a bit of what that strategy looked like.
So we were actually purely D2C until last year.
Oh,
So
amazing.
yeah. So uh, basically the timeline is July 2021 is when we moved into our first manufacturing facility of our own. Before that, the restaurant still is open actually, but we were kind of on the side of it, just
Right.
squatting in some unoccupied areas during COVID. And then finally they're like, no, you must find your own space. We're like, okay, that makes sense. So we went into this space July 2021, which is when we started to scale a little bit, still DTC only. And then we had done our first fundraising round January 2022. And that allowed us to start to hire a full dedicated team and to start to scale some of those operations. So basically from January 2022 until I think it was April, May of last year, 2023, we were essentially scaling D2C only. And then last year, we did our rebrand from Shatsuja to MìLà, and we also started to experiment with retail, grocery, brick and mortar expansion, distribution. So when we entered that, it was really looking at, okay, here are some of the regional stores. Here's different channels of stores where you have natural, you have specialty, you have conventional, mass. And we also did Costco last year, which is pretty unusual for
Wow.
an emerging brand. And we just wanted to see what resonated with people and what that potential market would look like for us.
That's incredible. What was the thing maybe from testing out with meta ads, then, it sounds like you didn't just jump into retail, you really took your time to understand, okay, this is what customers want. This is what they're looking for. What were some of the things that really made your product and brand different from anything else in the marketplace? What was some of the things you were hearing of like, okay, no, people really want our product?
So I think it's very interesting because it has changed over the last few years. So I think when we started to do it, there weren't really any other frozen raw soup dumplings. So at
Okay.
that time, there were like the microwavable pre-cooked soup dumplings, and I don't think that was necessarily a trend quite yet. So you had restaurants like Din Tai Fung where you could get it in person, but you didn't
Mhm.
have frozen raw soup dumplings. So it was differentiated in that the product itself and product format was new. And so I think that was really interesting to people. And we did some one-on-one customer interviews a couple of years ago. And I asked them, hey, do you buy anything else online? They're like, no, I never buy food online. I don't use Uber Eats. I don't use DoorDash. I don't buy food online. I never buy prepared foods. I'm like, what? Why did you purchase us then?
Yeah,
This
like
doesn't make any sense. And
what was their answer?
yeah, for them, they were just like, it was just so intriguing that it could come in this format frozen that I just decided on the spot to try it. And so I think the answer then is very different from it is now. So then it was like this new novel thing. There was experience. You're kind of on the forefront of this innovation, and you feel like you're a curator of, these goods.
Right.
And now there are a lot of options. There are competitors that have come to market that have pork soup dumplings. Soup dumplings as a frozen food has become just more popular. Even the microwavable ones, I think, Trader Joe's, theirs is very popular as well. And so for us, I think our really differentiator on this is product quality and consistency. We do a lot in terms of making sure that everything is very consistent. We do a lot of checks on the line. We do a lot of checks coming out of the line to make sure it's not melted, it's not cracked, it won't leak, it's the right filling, it's the right weight. Like all of these things matter to us. And it's not super obvious to the consumer when you go from one brand to the other than just the taste itself. But if you are looking at similarities, it does make a difference in the long term, where it's like, oh, for some reason, this brand, when we cook it, half of them fall apart and leak. And
Right.
this you don't. And it's like it might be a little bit cheaper, but then at the end of the day, what percentage of the soup dumpling can you reliably eat and enjoy and like share with other people? So on the soup dumplings itself, it has become an interesting kind of landscape of what's on the market now. And for us, soup dumplings is where we started, but we are also looking at a very long product innovation pipeline for just frozen Chinese food generally. So that's kind of where we're headed, is to have a broader portfolio of frozen Chinese food. And we do believe that there's a demand in the market for really authentic, great restaurant quality foods as well, that also kind of maybe start to have a unique twist to it.
Absolutely. And as someone who loves Chinese food, I shared before we hit record, I lived in China. I literally like Chinese food, street food, shao kao is where I lived in Chengdu. So shao kao I ate like every single day. Guo, like I was obsessed. I never had spicy food like that before in my whole entire life. And so I'm just personally really excited that you're going to be doing even more SKUs, because finding good quality Chinese that tastes authentic, that's a easy, like, frozen product is I have found it challenging. And so I love that you are taking that niche, like a really clear niche in the marketplace, and then saying, "Okay, we started with soup dumplings, but now we can move on to other products," right? And so what are some things that you really see as like the consistent thread of the product? So it's authenticity, it's your own unique spin to it. I would just love, is it the types of ingredients you're using as well?
Yeah, so I would say there are a few themes. I think from a product philosophy perspective, we really only want to make products that we are adding something to the ecosystem of value. So I think so. We're actually coming out with dumplings very soon, and
Amazing.
we did not do that for a very long time because I think for me, I was like, there's a lot of dumpling options out there. What would we add? How can we actually have our own take on this, and not just be a Me Too product? And so that took a little bit of time to inform, like, what is our North Star? And a lot
Right.
of what we do is essentially it's either an existing product that we are doing a little bit differently, or we're doing a totally new product and format, and how we would approach that is kind of our product philosophy. But a lot of it is like you're getting authentic, to us, authentic restaurant quality foods that takes, less than 5 minutes of prep time. So then you're not doing like, here's a from scratch meal kit. You're not doing a microwave one where everything's already done, because you won't get the highest quality that way, but keeping it as easy as possible in the prep. And then maybe the cook times are slightly longer, but you get this restaurant quality dish at home. That's kind of how we've centered a lot of our products around this idea. We did do Shao at one point. It
Really?
didn't. We did, yes, 2 years ago, unfortunately. And it was very popular with very specific audiences. But
Right.
then I think because it's not popular in the States, people didn't understand it as a concept. And
It
yeah,
needs
so
to get popular. I think it's like the best thing ever.
it's
And
my
it's,
favorite food, which is why we did it.
yeah, even living in New York City, I still find it kind of challenging to find.
Yes.
It's to me, I'm like, guys, everyone jump on board. This is delicious. And like the
Yes.
really good spiciness of it. And it's like, oh my gosh. So, okay, I missed out on that. If it ever comes back, please let me know. I will stock my home.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, I think it's like pulling on this thread of this authenticity piece is really interesting, because I think that can be a very subjective term.
Right.
And so I think a lot of people, even during our name change, they're like, why are you changing it? Shaozi is a better name. And we're like, yes, but it's true to who we are, MìLà, and it's both Chinese and it has English. It's Chinese American, just like we are, and it has, a wider application of how we want to be approaching this. It's not just about foods that already exist in the traditional sense, and we're replicating it and bringing it to market. And we had a limited edition vegan soup dumpling that we released earlier this year.
Hmm.
And for that one, I think it's like, okay, is this authentic Chinese food or not? And I think if
Right.
you're pure traditional Chinese food, no, but it is authentic to us as Chinese Americans, third culture living in the US, right? Because like
Right.
we grew up, this is the market, this is the audience, this is what people are looking for. And we're able to execute it in a way that feels true to us, like it has Chinese flavors, it's done the same way our soup dumpling is done. And so we're evolving that view of what is authentic from our own lens of what it is.
I love that. And I appreciate you saying third culture and your take on what authenticity means. And I think that is also the trend, but also not even just a trend, just the future of food. And I really appreciate founders who are saying that and leading that way. I really admire how you're doing that and bringing in all your different experiences and creating products that are speaking to the, traditions, but also this new approach of how it could scale and how it could grow and get into more kitchens around the country. You spoke about the vision of MìLà. What else do you see for the brand? It's more product SKUs, it's your own take. Anything else that you would love to be doing with the brand or something you're excited about coming up?
Yeah, I think it is, we're pretty product centric. So I think that's the focus, is looking at different products that can work and continuing to expand in retail over the next couple of years. That's just where 90% of the food shopping happens.
Right.
So I think it's important to make sure that it works in that setting and not just from a D2C setting. So that'll really be the focus for us. I think from the brand side, it is a lot more storytelling. So here's an example, is like, even though we're dumpling led or we're product led, and here's an example for dumplings when we launch it, there's just so much debate around, do we call it dumpling? Do we call it pot sticker? What is the difference? Do people actually understand the difference? Because now gyoza is equated to pot sticker, and
Right.
they're not exactly the same. And pot sticker is a subset of dumpling, but then like, is it so much work to educate the consumer on the differences between those? And we're doing, you know, a true Chinese dumpling that's boiled and can be pan fried, and the shape is different, the filling is different, the dough is different, but like these are such nuanced things.
Right.
How do we story tell about this? And it was interesting because even after the product's finalized, we're starting to do some of our marketing research of like, how do we talk about this? Let's film some content. For us, we actually had filmed with a couple of sets of grandmas, and the first set of grandmas were Taiwanese slash Taiwanese American, and their product lens was actually completely different from mine because my parents came from mainland China,
Right.
and I somehow had thought that these things that I had thought were unique to our product and in a good way would translate for anyone of like Chinese origin or descent. And that's just not the case at all. Like the flavors were completely different of what they wanted or liked and how they thought about it, and the dough itself and the size. And then when we talked to a second set of grandmas that were more like mainland Chinese, my parents' friends, first generation immigrants, they had almost exactly the talking points that I had gone through. And I just didn't even realize how stark, you know, my viewpoint was, even from like that type of audience. So I think it's been
That's
very
really interesting.
interesting. Yeah. And so then it's like, how far do you go into this on storytelling, especially if you're looking at introducing this to a mass audience? And I think there's a balance of like, are you doing authentic food or are you gentrifying the food? And for us, because it is like we're staying true to ourselves and
Right.
how we think it's authentic, it's still hard to convey that and what we think about it. And when we want to introduce it to a mass audience, we're not compromising on that authenticity, but we still have to be able to speak about it with a full audience.
Absolutely. And something that you have really done so well that you just touched upon is storytelling. It's something that has stood out of your brand and following you online, and just how your brand connects and engages. I think you've done such an amazing job, and it speaks to now connecting the dots, hearing you share the story and your point of view and how you connect the dots. Storytelling feels like a really big, important piece of this puzzle of, you want to share the story of your why and also bring people in so that they understand why this product is here, that it feels very intentional too, of what you're creating and how you're sharing it.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's been a central part of it. And it's not even that we know exactly what we want to share. I think it's just like this is our journey as well. So
Right.
we're just surfacing
Taking
what
in
is
everyone on
interesting
the
to
ride.
us. Yeah.
Also, too, are you doing research through the restaurant also at this point, or is it separate now?
It is pretty separate, but we do bring in new products early to the restaurant locations. So the restaurant and D2C, we think about those as innovation channels. So then you can test out early stage things there. So what's great about the restaurant is maybe you don't have a recipe that is commercially scaled yet, or
Right.
you know, like has automated equipment that you can get to scale, but you can test it out and see like, oh, how do people receive it? Do they like the flavor? How popular is it related to other items? So that's been really great as a testing ground.
That is so cool. One of my last questions. I could talk to you for hours. I really appreciate what you do and your point of view. Any advice you would share to a founder who's maybe in the really early stages? Maybe they're cooking with their grandma and it's something that's authentic, but their own take on a dish that maybe was passed down to them, or something that feels like home. And they're like, I feel like there's an opportunity in the marketplace. I don't really see something that speaks to my generation, but also staying true to our roots, but my take. What advice would you share with that founder?
I think two things. One is there's a lot of small tests that you can do. So for us, like we didn't have a brand, it was Ziploc bags, you know, all of the stock images, stock music. We did our content, it was horrible. Like there's lots of things that you can test in the beginning to just get a sense of product market fit. And I think related to that is for product market fit, I think starting out, it's understanding what you believe personally to be success. Is it something where you really want a mass audience to adopt and want to have? Or would you feel really happy if you were able to reach 10, 100, 1,000 people that were seeking this exact thing? Because I think the way you market that is extremely different.
Right.
Where if you're looking for somebody who is looking for this exact item with this nostalgia, the story, how you're doing it and appreciate it, then I think it's focusing on how can you reach that audience and feeling really good about accomplishing that, and then maybe testing out how far that can extend, versus if you're like, I would only start this if it were a viable, scaled, invested company. That's very different.
Right. Absolutely. And I'm glad that you said that, because for founders who are unclear of what exactly they want to build, the road becomes so much even more wonky and twists and turns and really, really hard. So I'm glad that you said that, because just having that clarity and that perspective really helps put the other pieces in place. And so I'm glad that you touched upon it, because it's such an important aspect of building a brand that I don't think we speak enough about. So I'm glad that you shared that. Okay, before I let you go, the most important question: where can we shop MìLà?
So for all of our product offerings, it would be on eatmila.com. And then in retail, we are in Costco, Target, Whole Foods. We'll be in Walmart pretty soon, Sprouts. So
Amazing.
yeah.
Incredible. Well, Jen, thank you so much. This was such a great conversation. I look forward to eating a lot of dumplings when I press publish on this recording. And just congratulations on all the exciting things you have happening. This was a great conversation. So thanks again for coming on.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and I'll see you next week.